Emma Rodriguez had always been proud of her meticulously maintained home in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Oak Ridge Estates. At 42, she was a successful project manager at a local tech firm, and the three-bedroom house with its sparkling in-ground pool represented more than just a property. It was a symbol of her hard-won independence and personal triumph. The pool had been her dream for years. When she first purchased the home 5 years ago, it was a modest property with an overgrown backyard. Emma had spent months researching pool designs, saving every extra penny, and ultimately investing nearly $75,000 to create her personal oasis. The Gunic pool, with its elegant blue tiles and carefully landscaped surroundings, featured a small waterfall and a comfortable seating area that made it the perfect retreat after long workdays. Every weekend, Emma would wake up early, enjoy her morning coffee by the pool, and spend hours maintaining its pristine condition. She took pride in every detail, from the carefully trimmed hedges to the immaculate pool deck. Her neighbors often complimented her on the beautiful backyard, and it had become a source of quiet joy in her life. On this particular sunny Saturday morning in late June, the temperature was already climbing towards 90 degrees. Emma had just finished skimming the pool and was adjusting the chlorine levels when she heard aggressive footsteps approaching. The sound of someone stomping across the carefully laid stone pathway immediately set her on edge. Karen Thompson, a woman in her late 50s who had moved into the neighborhood just 3 months earlier, came into view. Emma had heard whispers about the new resident, tales of confrontational behavior, and a tendency to meddle in other people's affairs. Her reputation preceded her like a storm cloud, and the neighborhood had been walking on eggshells since her arrival. "Excuse me." Karen's voice cut through the morning stillness like a sharp knife. "I need to discuss something with you immediately." Emma turned, still holding the pool skimmer, her crisp white tank top and blue shorts a stark contrast to Karen's overly pressed khaki pants and immaculate white blouse. The difference between them was immediately apparent. Emma looked relaxed and confident, while Karen radiated an air of manufactured outrage. "Good morning," Emma responded evenly, setting down the skimmer and wiping her hands on a nearby towel. "Can I help you with something?" Karen's face was already turning a shade of red that suggested her blood pressure was rising. Her fingers were clenched into tight fists, and her eyes darted around the meticulously maintained backyard with a mixture of anger and something else, perhaps calculation. "This pool," Karen declared, pointing an accusatory finger, "is not on your property. I have documentation that suggests it's actually encroaching on my land." The morning's peaceful calm shattered in an instant. Emma knew exactly what was coming, a confrontation that would test her patience, her property rights, and her understanding of neighborly boundaries. Karen Thompson's voice trembled with a mixture of manufactured indignation and barely concealed excitement. She pulled out a folder from her designer handbag, its crisp edges suggesting it had been prepared with meticulous, almost obsessive, care. "I've done my research," she announced, spreading several documents across the pool's edge, heedless of the carefully maintained stone surface. Emma noticed how Karen's papers were a hodgepodge of hand-drawn sketches, printed satellite images, and what appeared to be old property tax records. The documents looked official at first glance, but seemed increasingly dubious on closer inspection. Years of project management had trained Emma to recognize the difference between substantive evidence and elaborate misdirection. "These property lines," Karen continued, jabbing her manicured finger at a roughly sketched map, "clearly show that at least 2 feet of your pool extends onto what should be my property." Her tone was a perfect blend of superiority and aggression, the kind of voice that had likely bullied countless service workers and neighborhood associations into submission. But Emma wasn't easily intimidated. She had built her career and her home through careful planning and unwavering determination. The pool represented more than just a backyard feature. It was a testament to her independence, purchased after a difficult divorce and years of financial struggle. Every tile, every carefully chosen landscaping element was a marker of her personal resilience. "I'm going to need you to step back," Emma said calmly, her voice steady but firm. "These are serious accusations, and I'd appreciate you not touching my property." The neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. Several of Emma's neighbors were subtly peering out of their windows, blinds slightly adjusted, witnessing the unfolding drama. The Thompson family had quickly gained a reputation for being difficult since moving into the neighborhood just 3 months ago. Karen's husband, a corporate lawyer named Robert, had already alienated most of the neighborhood with his aggressive HOA complaints and nitpicking about minor infractions. Karen wasn't deterred. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. "I'm documenting everything," she declared. "My husband is a lawyer, and we won't stand for this encroachment. These property lines are clear." What Karen didn't know was that Emma was equally prepared. Her own folder of property documents, meticulously organized and containing the original survey, deed, and subsequent improvements, was safely inside the house. Years of professional project management had taught Emma the value of comprehensive documentation. The summer heat intensified the moment. Cicadas buzzed in the nearby trees, a stark contrast to the growing tension between the two women. Emma could see the neighborhood watching, some with concern, others with a mix of curiosity and anticipation. Neighborhood disputes were rare in Oak Ridge Estates, and this one promised to be memorable. "I think," Emma said slowly, maintaining her composure, "we should discuss this more professionally. Perhaps we could review the actual property documents together." Karen's response was immediate and telling. Her face flushed an even deeper shade of red, and her voice raised an octave. "Are you calling me a liar?" she demanded, her volume increasing with each word. "I know exactly what's going on here. You've deliberately placed this pool to steal my land." The accusation hung in the air, ridiculous, inflammatory, but delivered with such conviction that it momentarily gave Emma pause. This was about more than a few feet of property. This was about Karen's need to assert control to prove her perceived superiority. And Emma knew, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning of a much larger confrontation. By Monday morning, the pool dispute had become the hottest topic in Oak Ridge Estates, the neighborhood's intricate social network. A web of group chats, backyard conversations, and impromptu driveway meetings was buzzing with speculation and carefully parsed details. Margaret Chen, who lived directly across the street, was the unofficial information hub of the neighborhood. A retired high school principal with a razor-sharp memory and an even sharper tongue, she had been observing the Thompson family since their arrival. Her weekly bridge club and neighborhood watch group became ground zero for analyzing every detail of the emerging conflict. Robert Thompson tried to challenge the landscaping guidelines 3 weeks after moving in. Margaret shared with her closest confidence during their morning coffee meetup. He wanted to remove all the oak trees on his property, claiming they were a safety hazard. Can you believe the nerve? The neighborhood had its unspoken rules, carefully maintained over decades. Oak Ridge Estates prided itself on being a harmonious community, a delicate ecosystem of mutual respect and subtle social negotiations. The Thompsons, with their aggressive approach and apparent disregard for these unwritten laws, had been viewed with increasing suspicion. Emma's reputation stood in stark contrast. She had lived in the neighborhood for 5 years, becoming a quiet pillar of the community. As a successful project manager, she was known for her problem-solving skills and measured approach. When a local elementary school needed volunteers to organize their fundraising events, Emma was always first to raise her hand. When the neighborhood experienced a particularly difficult winter, she had been instrumental in organizing a support network for elderly residents. The Thompsons' arrival had been like a discordant note in an otherwise harmonious symphony. Robert's corporate lawyer demeanor and Karen's confrontational personality seemed deliberately designed to challenge the neighborhood's established norms. At the local Starbucks, where neighborhood gossip was as much a staple as coffee, sides were quietly being chosen. Mike Peterson, a retired engineer who had lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years, was overheard discussing the dispute with his morning coffee group. "I've seen the property surveys," Mike said, his voice low but carrying. "Emma Rodriguez is meticulous. If she says something is on her property, it's on her property." The digital realm was no less active. The neighborhood's private Facebook group, typically reserved for lost pet announcements and recommendations for local services, became a subtle battleground of information and inference. While direct accusations were quickly moderated, the subtext was clear. Most residents were skeptical of the Thompsons' claims. Karen, seemingly unaware of the growing community's sentiment against her, continued to escalate the situation. She began taking photographs of the pool from various angles, standing at the edge of what she claimed was her property line. Neighbors watched her with a mixture of disbelief and growing irritation. Robert Thompson, meanwhile, seemed to be fueling his wife's crusade. He started making calls, consulting with real estate colleagues, and hinting at potential legal action. The neighborhood watched, collectively holding its breath, sensing that a significant confrontation was imminent. Emma remained characteristically calm. She continued her daily routine, working from home, maintaining her pool, participating in neighborhood activities as if the looming conflict was a mere inconvenience. This very composure only further solidified her standing in the community. As the week progressed, the pool dispute transformed from a mere neighborhood disagreement into a potential defining moment for Oak Ridge Estates. It was more than just a property line argument. It was a test of the community's values, its sense of fairness, and its ability to handle conflict with dignity and respect. Emma's approach to the escalating situation was methodical and calculated. Her professional background in project management had taught her the value of thorough preparation and strategic thinking. The moment Karen's accusations became serious, she knew it was time to assemble her documentation with precision. Her home office became a war room of sorts. Spread across her carefully organized mahogany desk were years of meticulously kept documents. The original property survey from her home purchase 5 years ago sat prominently in the center, its official seal and crisp lines a testament to its authenticity. Beside it, she laid out the property tax records, landscaping permits, and the detailed blueprints of the pool installation. Michael Ramirez, her real estate lawyer, was a longtime family friend who had helped her navigate the complexities of her home purchase during her divorce. When Emma called his office, his receptionist knew immediately to put her through. "Tell me everything," Michael said, his voice calm and professional. Emma spent the next hour walking him through Karen Thompson's accusations, providing context about the neighborhood dynamics and sharing digital copies of all her documentation. Michael listened carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "The Thompsons are new to the neighborhood," Michael noted, "and they seem to be operating on assumption rather than fact. Have they seen any official surveys?" Emma explained the hand-drawn maps and satellite images Karen had presented. Michael chuckled softly. "Those aren't worth the paper they're printed on," he said. "We'll need to be strategic about how we handle this." The legal strategy they developed was multi-layered. First, they would compile a comprehensive document package that conclusively proved the pool's placement was entirely within Emma's property lines. This would include the original property survey, detailed landscaping permits, pool installation documentation, property tax records, recent professional land survey, which Emma would commission immediately. Michael advised Emma to remain calm and avoid direct confrontation. "Let the documentation speak for itself," he counseled. "These types of disputes can escalate quickly if emotions run high." The cost of the additional professional survey would be significant, nearly $1,500, but Emma knew it was a necessary investment. She had worked too hard to build her life to let a baseless accusation threaten her peace of mind. As she prepared the documents, Emma couldn't help but reflect on the journey that brought her to this moment. The pool represented more than just a backyard feature. It was a symbol of her independence, purchased after years of financial struggle and personal challenges. Her divorce had been difficult, but she had emerged stronger, more resilient. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Laura. "Heard about the neighborhood drama. Need backup?" Emma smiled. The support of her friends and neighbors was a powerful reminder that she wasn't alone in this fight. The Thompsons might have brought a confrontation to her doorstep, but they had no idea of the strength and community behind her. Michael's final piece of advice resonated in her mind. "We'll be prepared for whatever they throw our way. But remember, sometimes the best defense is a clear, factual presentation of the truth." As the afternoon light filtered through her home office, Emma continued organizing her documents. Each file, each piece of paper was a building block in her defense, a methodical approach to dismantling Karen Thompson's unfounded claims. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Oak Ridge Estates when the police cruiser pulled up to Emma's meticulously maintained property. Officer David Martinez was a seasoned veteran of the local police force, having served the community for over 15 years. He had seen his share of neighborhood disputes, but something about this call felt different. Karen Thompson stood to the side, her posture rigid with anticipation. She had called the police, her voice trembling with what she claimed was righteous indignation. Property encroachment, she had told the dispatcher, and potential theft of land. Robert, her husband, stood slightly behind her, his corporate lawyer demeanor carefully cultivated to appear both authoritative and concerned. As Officer Martinez approached, he could sense the tension. The neighborhood had seemed to be holding its collective breath. Curtains twitched and carefully manicured bushes rustled with the movement of observant neighbors. "Ms. Rodriguez," Martinez called out, his professional tone cutting through the charged atmosphere. Emma emerged from her home, a folder of documents in her hand. She was the picture of composure. Dressed in tailored business casual, her hair neatly pulled back, she radiated a calm that stood in stark contrast to Karen's barely contained agitation. Karen immediately began speaking, her words tumbling out in a rush, aggressive stream. "Officer, this woman has illegally placed a swimming pool on my property. We have documentation that proves." Martinez raised a hand, a gesture that instantly silenced her. Years of law enforcement had taught him to manage volatile situations with a combination of authority and patience. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "I'll need to hear from both parties." The confrontation that followed was a masterclass in controlled tension. Karen spread out her collection of documents, hand-drawn maps, printouts from various online mapping services, and what appeared to be old property tax records. Her presentation was loud, dramatic, filled with sweeping gestures and increasingly heated declarations. "Look," she exclaimed, pointing to a roughly sketched map. "These lines clearly show that her pool extends onto my property, as at least 2 feet over the line." Robert Thompson stood nearby, his arms crossed, projecting an image of legal authority. His presence seemed calculated to intimidate, a silent threat of potential legal action. Officer Martinez listened patiently, his experienced eyes taking in the details. He had seen countless similar disputes, and he knew the importance of maintaining neutrality. "Miss Thompson," he said carefully, "these documents look unofficial." Karen's face flushed. "My husband is a lawyer," she declared, as if this statement alone should settle the matter. Emma, who had been silent until now, simply asked, "May I present my documentation, officer?" Martinez nodded, his professional demeanor a calm center to the swirling emotional storm. With measured movements, Emma began to spread out her documents. Each one was crisp, official, bearing official seals and precise measurements. The original property survey, landscaping permits, pool installation documentation. Each document told a clear, factual story. The transformation was immediate. Karen's confident bluster began to crumble. Robert's carefully maintained facade of legal superiority started to show cracks. Officer Martinez carefully reviewed each document, his expression shifting from neutral professionalism to a look of growing sympathy for Emma. The hand-drawn maps and online printouts Karen had presented looked increasingly ridiculous when compared to Emma's comprehensive official documentation. The neighborhood watched, a collective intake of breath marking the moment when truth would finally emerge. The silence that followed was profound. Officer David Martinez carefully examined each document Emma had presented, his trained eye moving methodically from one page to the next. The professional survey was a masterpiece of precision, color-coded lines, exact measurements, and official stamps that left no room for interpretation. "Miss Thompson," Martinez said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of official authority, "these documents are quite clear." He pointed to specific sections of the survey explaining technical details that made Karen's earlier claims look increasingly ridiculous. The original property survey was a comprehensive document that showed not just property lines, but detailed topographical information. It revealed that Emma's pool was not only entirely within her property boundaries, but was actually set back several inches from the absolute legal limit. Robert Thompson, who had remained silent during most of the confrontation, began to shift uncomfortably. His carefully cultivated image of legal expertise was crumbling with each passing moment. The hand-drawn maps Karen had so confidently presented now looked like nothing more than crude sketches, amateur and completely without legal standing. "I don't understand," Karen stammered, her earlier confidence evaporating. "Our real estate agent showed us. We thought." Her voice trailed off, the weight of her baseless accusation becoming increasingly apparent. Officer Martinez's report would later note the precise details. The pool was 100% within Emma Rodriguez's legal property lines, with documented permits and surveys to prove it. More importantly, Karen Thompson's accusations amounted to harassment. Margaret Chen, who had been watching from her perfectly manicured front yard, couldn't help but smile. The neighborhood of Grapevine would be buzzing with this story for months to come. Years of observing community dynamics had taught her that moments like these revealed true character. Emma remained composed, but there was a subtle shift in her demeanor. It wasn't triumph or anger, but a quiet sense of vindication. This was about more than just a property dispute. It was about standing up to unfounded accusations, about maintaining dignity in the face of aggression. "I'd like to file a report about harassment," Emma said calmly to Officer Martinez. Her tone was matter-of-fact, devoid of any emotional vindictiveness. Robert Thompson finally spoke, his lawyer's instincts kicking in. "I don't think that's necessary," he said, his voice tight. The last thing they wanted was an official record of their baseless claims. But Officer Martinez was already pulling out his notepad. "Ms. Rodriguez has every right to file a report," he stated firmly. The implications were clear. The Thompsons had crossed a line, and there would be consequences. The neighborhood seemed to exhale collectively. Windows that had been carefully positioned for observation now slowly closed. Conversations would be had over dinner tables and driveways during morning coffee meetings. A story of how Karen Thompson had been so dramatically proven wrong would become neighborhood legend. For Emma, the moment was bittersweet. She had defended her property, her peace of mind, her hard-earned sanctuary. The pool, more than just a backyard feature, stood as a testament to her resilience, her ability to stand firm in the face of unwarranted aggression. As Officer Martinez finished his report, Karen and Robert Thompson looked small, diminished. The neighborhood watched, a silent jury to their public humiliation.